it's all in rushes. There are sort of periods of nothing, of waiting. You may be watching, you may be seeing, but when it actually starts, it starts and it's horrendous and it pounds and it crashes and it bangs and so on, and then it's gone. And you're sort of left drained. And the same thing I think with the attack, really, in a way. You get very scared. Pee your pants.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't be ashamed of that. You get really frightened. I'm trying to, when you asked me to do this, I'm trying to think of some of the what I might call the worst times. And I think during that period there was one that was, it's still branded in my mind, and still occasionally at night it bothers me. And I had to spend about, I don't know how many hours in a shell hole. We were pinned down with one of the guys from the platoon, whose intestines had been opened up by shrapnel, and he wanted me to kill him. And he kept screaming at me to kill him, and there was nothing I could do, and we couldn't get out because every time I sort of put my head up, the burst of machine gun fire, and it just went on and on and on,
How it had happened that situation had occurred? Just take me into the battle.
Okay, we had taken over from the Sherwood Foresters, a county regiment in an area near Sejanane, in the Cork Woods, and the battle that occurred there was called the Cork Woods, and that's the sort of name of the battle.
This is a mountainous valley.
This was
area.
Yeah, it was in the Atlas Mountains. It was wooded. Really, it is cork woods, where they actually make cork from the cork trees. Right. And this was a hilltop, mountain top, whatever. It was elevated, but it was full of trees. We took over from them. The Germans were making a major attack coming through. We took over at night, the artillery firing like crazy to cover our relief of the Sherwood Foresters.
And they were just exhausted?
Yeah, they'd had fairly heavy casualties and they needed to be pulled out. We took over, we went up at night into their trenches, we got ourselves set up. The Germans in the morning thought we were still the Sherwood Foresters and that they would have a fairly easy run at getting through. Got the shock of their lives. We were yelling at them, you got the wrong guy, you bastards, and they were coming up the hill and we were firing away. And that was anyway. We fought them off. We gave them a lot of casualties. They'd run into the wrong guys, we weren't going to pack it in or move out or whatever. But after about 3 days of this, I guess, I can't remember, the French Corps d'Afrique, I think it was called, the FCA, were on our right. And the Germans realized they couldn't hit us, or they couldn't make it against the 1st Parachute Brigade, so then they switched their attack to this lot, got it, broke through virtually, and I can remember because I spoke French well enough at the time. In the company I was in, we had these little field telephones rigged, and one of them went to the right to this, and I picked up the phone and the guy said, we're going in 5 minutes. We're withdrawing, we're leaving, and this telephone's going to be disconnected. And I sort of in French tried to say, well, where are you going? He said, I don't know, I've simply been told that we're withdrawing, we're pulling out. And so I told the company commander, he told the CO and so on. In no time at all we realized that the French on our right flank were gone and we were going to be cut off. So then we had to go back. Well, in order to go back, we had to go down a valley, had a river running called the Oued Sejanane, which was a river that ran down thing, and the withdrawal route for our battalion was down this river. And I was the last guy out of C Company, which was the last rifle company to go out. And the Germans saw us. They were up in the hills, and they started to shell like crazy. And about, I don't know, 10 minutes after we started withdrawal down there, this bloody great shell arrived. It caught this guy, created the shell hole. I slid into it, you know.
And you were sort of were you sort of like going in a line, or
We were
trying
in
to find
single
cover, I
file.
suppose. Single file,
Yeah.
right.
2 battalions,
Right.
just strung out.
Right.
And
were you firing back at all, or were you just trying to get out?
God, no. Because they were. We didn't think we were in small arms range at the time. It was all artillery and mortar fire that was coming down. You know, they were just trying to hit this line of soldiers from wherever their guns were, which we couldn't see. We didn't realize there were machine guns closer until I got into the shell hole with this guy, you know. And I mean, I wasn't going to do what he wanted me to do, and I wanted to get the hell out of there. I was okay, you know. And what I wanted to do was get out and get some medical people back to him, but I couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And actually, he did survive, thank God. You know.
So
Okay. Here we are in the shell hole, and he asked me to kill him, and it goes on for, it seems like hours and hours and hours. I don't know how long it was. And then there's a great clattering and clanking noise, and some British tanks came up alongside, and they were a regiment called the North Irish Horse, which was a great yeomanry regiment from Northern Ireland, and they were wonderful guys, and they had these Churchill tanks, and they came clattering up, and started banging away at the hills there. And obviously they either silenced this machine gun or made him keep his bloody head down, because he stopped firing.
Right.
You know, the machine gun stopped firing, and I popped up, and I said, I got this guy here, and he's terribly badly wounded, and the guy, he was very sort of, frightfully decent sort of British sort of chap from Northern Ireland. He said, "Don't worry, old fellow." He said, "I'll get on the radio and get some medical people up." So I, and that was it. So I then was able to tell this guy that, he was still making terrible noise. And I said, you're going to be all right, you're going to be all right. And then I buggered off myself, down the wadi, down the river, try and catch up the battalion, which I didn't do, because I didn't know where the hell they'd gone. And this time it was getting dark, and I finished up alone out there, and I hunkered down behind a stone wall for the night. And I could hear the Germans digging in, and they were digging in.
You hear their voices?
I hear them talking. I could hear the shovels clanking. I could hear the picks going, and they were only a few hundred yards away. And so I stayed awake all night. I had some maps with me because I was in the intelligence section. I didn't want them to get those, and I had them sort of inside my shirt. And I just hunkered down in the dark because a German patrol came right down alongside me. I looked up, and there was the coal scuttle helmets in the moonlight, and so on and so forth. And that's not one you want to repeat, because if they saw me, they would probably shoot and kill me, because they wouldn't take chances. And you're caught, you either freeze and hope that they won't see you. You're going to get away with it. There's nothing I could do. I mean, I had a rifle, but I couldn't take on about 10 or 12 of these guys, the schmeisers. And, and if you're going to give up, you're going to have to stand up and say, "Camarade" or something, and then you don't know whether they're going to shoot you or not. And I waited till just about an hour before dawn, and then everything went quiet, and I think they're all asleep now. And then I went on, and there was a great big hill called a pimple that just sort of stuck up in the moonlight like this, and I headed for it. And sure enough, I got to the base of it, and the voice in front of me said, "Halt, I'll blow your fucking head off." So I remember the password, and I was back back with the lucky, back with the battalion.
Wow.
Yeah.